Welcome to the Starlight 2026 Dream Builder Masterclass. I am so excited to teach this and to give you access to my 2026 Dream Builder free GPT. It's free until January 1st, so I hope you got it then. But this is so exciting because my whole mission is to help turn you into your own astrologer. I'm an astrologer. I used to do lots of private appointments, but I am hyper obsessed with turning everybody who's into astrology into their own activated astrologer because I think we need more astrological thinkers in the world because I think it will save the world at the end of the day. So by creating the 2026 Dream Builder GPT, this helps me walk you through an experience, a guided experience that is tied to your hyperspecific birth chart and all of the wild, exciting transits that are going to happen in 2026. And through walking through all of that and finding out how those transits affect your specific birth chart, and then pouring our intention of what we want our lives to look like at the end of 2026, we're getting this guided experience that ties all of that together and weaves it into a really beautiful narrative of the dream life you're calling in, and then how you can use the big transits that are happening to the entire globe with the awareness of how they affect your chart specifically. And that way, 2026 is no mystery to you. 2026 isn't just a bunch of very big transits that hit you in unconscious ways. You have the data, you have the map so that you can bring your consciousness to following it, so that you can bring your consciousness into building the dream life. So, when I say 2026 is a very interesting year, one of the things I'm really referring to is that we're going to have a transit that hasn't happened in human history in something like more than 5,000 years. This is Saturn is moving into Aries. Neptune is moving into Aries. Neptune's been in Pisces for 14 years. Saturn's been in Pisces for the last 2.5 years. We've been at the closing of huge cycles. Saturn isn't just wrapping up its 30-year cycle, but Neptune is wrapping up a 184-year cycle. So Neptune is the planet of the collective unconscious dreams. It feeds you wherever your Neptune is in your chart. That's how you get a little link to how the universe wants to seed new consciousness to onto Earth through the portal of you, your dreams, your imaginations, and your actions. And so the fact that Saturn or Neptune has traveled the entire wheel of the zodiac, the entire spectrum of the life cycle of human consciousness, which is what the zodiac really is, over the last almost 200 years is so fascinating because this means right now because Saturn or Neptune is at 29 degrees of Pisces. So this is the point at which it is creating the seed of new consciousness that it is going to plant come when Neptune moves into Aries. And what's so wild is that Saturn, the planet of structure, the planet of getting responsible, finding your maturity and using it to bring form, like to build the bones, to go to Home Depot, buy the wood, and construct the thing, um, has also been finishing its last life cycle over 30 years in Pisces. So we're wrapping all of that up in our own lives, in our collective story, and we're flipping the whole book to start the new chapter when Saturn and Neptune meet at 0 degrees of Aries on February 20th, 2026. So this is not just new cycles for these planets. The fact that the two of them are meeting at 0 degrees of Aries together is very interesting. And we're going to get into a little bit more about the backstory of why this entire year is going to be the culmination of a very big turnover in human consciousness, a very big, like, let's get rid of the old. We had to like break down and melt a lot of old consciousness, and now it's time to start building the new framework for the new story of humanity. So before we get into all of that, because I'm giving you this little 10-minute sort of beginning opener so that you sort of start to get juiced up about why it's going to be so exciting for you to actually plan your 2026 dream life. And after I give you this little intro, we're going to get into the nuts and bolts of how do you use the 2026 Dream Builder GPT that I built, because that's going to give you like the map of your dream life tied to your chart, tied to all the transits. But first, let's just like get into the vibe of like, we are astrology girlies. Well, I'm not a girly anymore, I'm 43. There might be some astrology gentlemen watching this masterclass. If so, welcome, welcome to the team. Welcome to the future dreamers, collective of people who want to sync to the cosmos through their astrology. And that's, why does astrology work? Let's take 2 minutes to talk about that. Astrology is essentially mythopoetic math because the universe runs on math. Math is the ghost in the machine of how anything works. You could take cells in your body and figure out the math of those. The math of transformation is what astrology is designed to bring meaning to. It's how we speak the language of consciousness. So astrology is like the language of the algebra of all of the movement going on in the universe, and how as monads bump into each other, as monads form relationships with each other, how does that cause different events in evolution? And so you can think of astrology simply as the algebra of how consciousness evolves in the universe, and then it's how we can understand pattern recognition across scales. So if you've ever heard the spiritual axiom, as above, so below, that you can find that in spiritual traditions all across the world in all different time periods. It's very baked into like human awareness that you can look at patterns of higher order and then find the same patterns going on at lower order. So what we're doing with astrology is saying that we can look at patterns in the cosmos. We can watch the way the orbital relationships of planets in the sky, how they dance together, and get some archetypal understanding of what's going on within our microcosm. So when we're talking about designing our dream life, we're going to look at our chart, which is a representation of the exact time that we popped into consciousness in this, current meat suit body. And then and we carry that tone of consciousness of the moment we were born with us throughout our lives. Obviously, we develop it. Your birth chart is really a representation of the seed of you. And then we can follow the patterns that are going on as we continue to evolve on Earth in this life, and then understand what those lessons and energetic waves formed by transits are. So we're going to look at the 2026 transits that are happening and then figure out how does that affect what's that popping in my chart specifically. And why I'm calling this the 2026 Dream Life Planner is because there is the principle of the conscious observer, that what you can name, what you can see in what's happening, you can work with. So when we call out our own patterns and we see them, we have much more power to work to transform them. And so as we look at all of the transits that are going to go on in 2026 and how they're going to happen, what they're going to pop in our chart specifically, this exercise, think of it as a ritual that is going to spur an entire year of contemplation in your chart. What we're going to walk through in the Dream Life GPT is something you can save and refer back to all year. You can continue to discuss things with this GPT as the year moves on. And I have more tools for you if you want to get in even more detail with this. So again, the conscious observer principle is that if we can see it, if we can see the pattern, if we can name it, we can start to work with it versus just getting like bumped by things unconsciously and we don't know what the meaning, what the lesson is, and then it kind of creates more chaos. So that's not that fun. So I'm going to record a full podcast that gives you the entire rundown of basically the last 20 years of transits and why that makes 2026 so significant so that you get the context. Because astrology is also the language of the total entire story of the the story of human conscious evolution. You can follow it as far back as we can figure out what was even going on in human history. But that'll be a separate podcast I'm releasing this weekend. So I won't go too deep into this, but we've had some really interesting. Pluto moved into Aquarius last year. Pluto was in Capricorn from 2008 to 2024. in 2020, Saturn and Pluto conjuncted, and that happened in January of 2020. And then what happened after that? We had COVID, and the whole world just basically turned upside down, and it hasn't righted itself since, right? So Pluto's been in Aquarius since last year. So what 2026 means is that, so 2024, we had Pluto become the first outer planet to move into a new sign in a while. Now, in 2026, we have both Neptune, Uranus, and Saturn moving into totally new signs. So this completes that, whew, we are moving into totally new human consciousness. That's why you want to know, how's it going to affect you? Okay, so quick. What are all of the big transits that we're going to walk through in the GPT, which I'm opening in like 2 minutes? Okay, speeding it up, Catherine. Okay, so 2026 transit overview. January 26th, 2026, Neptune finishes its 184 entire cycle, moves out of Pisces, moves into Aries. We're going to figure out where that hits your chart. February 13th, 2026, Saturn joins Neptune in Aries. And then a week later, they move into conjunction at 0 degrees of Aries for the first time in millennia. We also have an eclipse on February 17th. So eclipse season is starting. We have another eclipse on March 3rd. Then Uranus enters Gemini. It hasn't moved signs in 7 years. So that's an entirely new era as well for us. Chiron moves into Taurus June 19th. And then Jupiter shifts into Leo this summer. And on July 26th, the nodes of the moon, the north node is moving into Aquarius instead of Pisces. And then the south node is moving into Leo. No more Virgo. So it's just a lot of shifting. And then we're also going to have Venus retrograde in Scorpio and Leo in October and another round of eclipses in August. So we're going to get into all of this and how it is going to hit your chart and how you are actually going to bring structure to your intentions. Because I think the big theme of this year is Saturn and Neptune is the dream builder. You know, Neptune and being in Pisces, that was like 14 years of kind of just potentially losing yourself in the dreams that you wish the world was like this, right? Well, Neptune and Aries means let's actually make that the real deal, and let's spend the next 200 years, 184 years, turning that dream into reality. And so this 2.5 year period where Saturn is going to be joining Neptune in the same sign is going to be an incredible opportunity for all of us to become not just spiritual dreamers, but spiritual warrior architects who build and participate in building the dream world. So I hope you come back to this exercise throughout the year and don't just do this as like a one-time thing. I'm trying to encourage you to become your own astrologer. I want you to start becoming an astrological thinker. And my mission is to give you the tools that make all of that very simple. So I am going to open this tab and you should have access to this so that you, all right, this is opening, so that you can do this with me. You can pause you can pause this video anytime and just like go through it bit by bit so that you know exactly how this works. By the end of it, you're going to have like some tangible architectural plans of what your 2026 dream life is going to be like. Okay, so first things first, just click the button that says let's dive in to your personal 2026 dream builder. Super exciting. This might go slow because I'm doing video, so hopefully it's not too annoying. But I have prepared kind of my answers to it so I don't have to sit and type while you're watching me. So this is going to ask you, first things first, I'm going to pull up your birth chart. So it's going to ask you for your date of birth, time of birth, location, and do you want your birth chart shown to you as Placidus or whole sign? So it's going to give you the format. And this is important, not to be nagging, but please put your data in this format. Your name, and just copy this exact format and put your birth date information in that way. Because if you don't, it's probably going to pull your data wrong. And I'm not even going to bother answering the emails from people who are like, I looked on AstroSeek and it says it's different than my chart. If you put it in that format, it will give you the right data. Okay, so here's mine. I'm Catherine. I was born November 8th, 1982 at 9:02 a.m. in Austin, Texas. And I want my chart in Placidus, please. So, boop, boop, boop. It's going to go through the internets and send your data to my astrology API and pull back your entire birth chart. It's going to give you your planetary placements down to the house of degree. It's going to give you your house placements. And if you want your aspects and you want to actually pull up your chart as well, it'll do that for you. So this gives you a ton of data, and you can just like save this in your phone if you are like, I don't like want to, be bothered with looking at my chart all the time. This is going so slow because A, I live at a ranch in the middle of nowhere and I use Starlink internet, and doing this on video makes this slower. So it's going to give you the option. Do you want to see your aspects? Do you want to see your chart wheel? And I'll just say yes. Let me see my aspects and chart wheel. Oops. So that you can just see that this will pull this back for you if you want it. And you can put this on like 1.5 or 2 speed, so that you don't have to watch the entire wheel spin while it does this. If you're not on video, this will go like super, super fast. Okay. And if you click this link, it will give you your birth chart wheel. So now it's like, hey, do you want to move into your 2026 forecast now? And I'm just going to say, yes, please, hit me. And for the rest of for the next 10 minutes of this, what it's giving you is all of those transits that I walked through in the introduction. It's going to go piece by piece and pull that apart based on your chart and give you a flavor of how it's going to affect you specifically. So we're starting with your perfected year. So every year of your life, a certain part of your chart is really lighting up. So this is calculating based on your birth date, what house is really active for you this year? So for me, up until my birth date, I'm still really in an eighth house year. And then after my 2026 birthday, we're moving into my ninth house year. So for me, the eighth house is Cancer, then in the ninth house is Leo. It's kind of interesting because Jupiter happens to be in Cancer, and then Jupiter's going to be in Leo as this is happening. So that's very interesting. And one thing I'll mention, as we go through this, I'm not going to spend any time talking to this about any questions I've got. I'm going to save those questions for the end, and then the GPT will discuss any of the details we go through in as much detail as you want. So you can just have a conversation with this thing all night if you want. Okay, so now we're getting into the actual transits that are happening. And so if you're aware, Jupiter's currently in Cancer. So this is going to talk to you about where Cancer falls in your house and what is Cancer doing there. So for me, Jupiter in Cancer is playing in my eighth house, which is interesting because that's also what's going on with my perfected year. And then as Jupiter moves into Leo, it's going to hit up my ninth house. This is very, very interesting in what's going on in my actual life. And I've thought a lot about how it's basically saying you have to let a lot of things die and a lot of things change in your eighth house so that you can really come into that J-Lo. I always call J-Lo the ultimate Leo, like so that you can really take the stage of your purpose when you move into your ninth house perfected year and Jupiter moves into Leo. So the next big transit, Saturn moving into Aries, which happens on February 13th. So where is this happening for me personally? It's happening in my fifth house. So the next, 2.5 years and the next 14 years are really going to be activating personally my fifth house of creation and just sheer joy and romance. We'll see what goes on there. And also self-expression based on your true genius. So, you'll be doing this on your end. So this is obviously doing it with my data. But Neptune moving into Aries on January 26th is also activating my fifth house. So I'm pretty excited about this. It really fits with what I've been working on. And so I'm excited for you to figure out like whatever house is Aries for you is going to be very active. So this is what we're talking about here. The Saturn-Neptune conjunction that happens on February 20th, 26th at 0 degrees of Aries. it's the 0 degrees of, it's interesting anyway because every 30 something years Saturn and Neptune will conjunct because Saturn moves faster than Neptune. But at 0 degrees Aries, that is the starting point of the entire zodiac. Like we don't even remember when the last time this happened. And so this is a reset for humanity. It means the entire chapter of the last dream of humanity, Neptune, represented by Neptune, has ending right now, where Neptune is in the last degree of Pisces right now. And so the seed of the new dream is forming. A lot of people are feeling like things are very still. It's like this the calm, not the calm before a storm per se, but the silence before a new lightning strike. And I think that's really fascinating. Okay, so the next transit that's happening is Uranus and Gemini. And for me, that's going to happen in my seventh house. So for the next 7 years, my seventh house is going to be activated from, so that's partnerships, one-on-one romance, business partnerships. So what I'm very interested in about Uranus and Gemini is this is a revolution in communication. This is the AI revolution, but it's not just the AI revolution. But the fact that it's happening in the same year, like literally within a month and a half of an entirely new dream of humanity starting because of Neptune and Saturn meeting in Aries, to me means that we're going to have a lot of connection that's going to happen. Gemini is an air sign. It wants to, break out from the Taurus kind of like grounded earthiness and find information everywhere. Touch new things. It's like if you imagine a plant just like growing its vines and branches everywhere and trying to get as much awareness of the volume, the air of Earth as possible. And so I think the AI revolution is certainly going to be a huge theme of this, but I think it's also going to be themes of potentially telepathy, um, themes of maybe potential telepathy, not just between humans, but between different species, potentially assisted by AI, and then just the connection of communities, because as we'll find out in a second, the nodes are shifting into Aquarius Leo, and Pluto moved into Aquarius last year. So it's really a whole new story that's going on. So I'm going to do a full podcast on all of these transits in a lot more depth, with the context of the last 20 years and the context of the next 20. So I'm really excited to do that. But getting back to this GPT so you can understand, just the subset of 2026 transits. Chiron is moving into Taurus. This is a huge new chapter. It's been in Aries since like 2019. So Chiron moving into Taurus, we're focusing on self-worth. I have Chiron in Taurus. So in the next by the time I'm 50, I'm gonna have my Chiron return. This is embodiment. This is like feeling safe in your body, finding the safety of your material security. So that's going to happen somewhere in your chart, and Chiron and Taurus will give you context as to the exact kind of lessons that you'll be learning. Okay, so the nodal shift. I think this is really interesting because so right now the North Node is in Pisces and the South Node is in Virgo. So that's kind of interesting that at the end of Neptune in Pisces and Saturn in Pisces, the nodes were also the North Node was also in Pisces. But last year, Pluto moved into Aquarius, and this nodal shift really like continues to deepen us into what Aquarian energy is like, what it's, we are in the transition phase. I mean, this is also fascinating. We're at the end of the age of Pisces, where, but the ages don't, in the precession of the equinox don't just flip like switches overnight. They have these intertidal periods. And so the more we deepen into Aquarian energy, the more we're making that transition. And I think one of the most fascinating things, it's so wild how all of the pancake stacking happens with transits. And that's where you get the interesting nuance of the story. So in this in this last year and a half, or well, we still have a few more months before this, like 6 more months before this happens. But the Pisces node was like deepening your spiritual connection, depending on where it happened in your chart. Mine was in my fourth house, so mine was like getting very clear about my IC, like my spiritual roots, my ancestral roots, and how I almost ground my nervous system while still having my Piscean, almost like psychic feelers out into the collective. And then in Virgo, the South Node for me personally happened in my ninth house, so my part of fortune is there, and it allowed me to release the hypercritical, well, have lessons around releasing the hypercritical kind of Virgo and inner mean girl. And so I did a lot of work and learning around that. So you can find out where Virgo hits in your chart for your specific lessons. But where we're moving is, and those lessons prepared us for the Aquarius Leo nodal shift. This is where our edges are moving and where we're going to be learning lessons around. So Aquarius being like an entirely new story for community, for the democratization of enhanced higher consciousness across the planet. But the thing is, Aquarius energy can sometimes be a little detached. It has beautiful, beautiful big dreams for the entirety of the collective of humanity, but sometimes those dreams get heavy, and an air sign can't really handle that heaviness, and so what we need to be able to do to really integrate the best of this new, of not just the Aquarian age, but this is where we can practice really coming into the Pluto and Aquarius era, is Leo wants us to not lose our individuality. So one of the shadow sides of Aquarius is favoring the collective over the individual nature of your genius. And so to have the best of this era, we need the total balance, the conjunction of opposites, the marriage of opposites. And so I think what the next 20 years with Pluto and Aquarius is going to be about is how do we enhance consciousness, standard of living, economics, government, media, all of it for the entire globe while not losing the beauty of the individual. And when the beauty of the individual, when the individual gardens their genius, they have the power to affect the collective on a much greater scale. So I think lessons are going to come up around that, and it's going to be amazing. Okay, I love to yap, if you haven't noticed. I can really just get into topics and just go for it. So I don't want to keep you here for 2 hours. We're already 30 minutes in, so I'm gonna keep moving. So we're gonna have another Venus retrograde. We had one this past, so it's December now. We had one in February and March. So we're having another Venus retrograde in October. So this is gonna happen in Scorpio and Libra. And so wherever your house is there, for me, it's going to be my 11th house and my 10th house. So this is very fascinating. So now we're going to get into the eclipses of 2026. And they're coming right up. The first one is in February, and that eclipse is right around. So the solar eclipse in Aquarius happens 3 days before Neptune and Saturn meet in Aries. So I think that's very fascinating. So that will be a solar new moon eclipse in Aquarius, again, really showing us like this new Aquarian energy is coming to Earth. The lunar eclipse, the full moon eclipse in Virgo is going to be March 3rd. Then we're in August, we're going to have another new moon eclipse in Leo. So that is going to be exciting. That's like for me, that's going to be very heart opening. I have my moon in Leo, so if you have anything around 20 degrees of Leo, that'll give you some big clues on what it's going to pop in your life. And then a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces at 4 degrees at the end of August. So this will just give you a quick little summary of all of the key dates that are happening and where they're happening in your chart. So this is where you want to, if you don't understand this like today, right away, don't sweat it. This starts to open you up to the contemplation of all of these energies. That you're not designed to just like grok all of this immediately. This is starting to install the software, the archetypal software that's going to work on you throughout the year. Okay, so this is where we get into the actual planning, the details of what you want your dream life to be in 2026. So it is going to ask you 12 questions, one at a time, that mirror every house in your chart. And it's going to then take you into the dream life narrative. So I've already prepared the answer to all my questions because I don't want to type them out and keep you here while you watch me think about it. So I already wrote my answers and I'm just going to paste them in and you're just going to see how this process works so that you can take your time and do this on your own at your own pace. So it's going to start with It's going to start with questions about a question for each house. So it's going to start with your first house. So it's asking me, first house, your identity. This is your rising sign. And it's saying, who do you want to show up as? Who are you? It's a little bit of like who are you letting go, but like who's been ready to come to the forefront? So, I already wrote this answer, and I'm this year I'm unapologetically showing up as who I am. I know that I let sort of like the peanut gallery voice of my critics kind of take the microphone away from me a little bit last year. And that was okay. That was a lesson I was learning. I had Uranus on my Chiron, but I'm done with that. That's one of the reasons I'm recording this masterclass is because I don't give a shit who's like telling me AI is like heretical for using with astrology. All of this is tied to hyper-specific directions and it's tied to my astrological API. So as long as you put your birth date in the right format, it's bringing the right data. And this allows democratization. This is very Pluto and Aquarius. This is very Uranus and Gemini. I want you to skill up as an astrological thinker, and I want you to take ownership of how you design your life and get into a conversation that lasts for the rest of your life with the cosmos. Enough yapping, Catherine. So I answered my second house in Capricorn question, or the question about my second house is like, how do you want to deal with your income? Like, what abundance are you calling in? And what about the materiality of your self-worth? So, I am, receiving is not my best strong suit, so I'm handling that this year. It's getting handled, and I'm excited for it. It's been a long time coming, but I still love to give, so that's why I'm doing these master classes. Okay, third house, communication, mindset, and how are you like how are you communicating your genius out into the world? I'm gonna do a lot of. I'm excited. This is gonna be one of the areas I super focus on this year, especially because it's the North Node's moving into Aquarius, and that hits my third house. So fourth house, home and roots. Boy, oh boy, did I do some work around this year. Pisces is where my fourth house is. And so like Neptune and Saturn were like just riding my IC all year, actually for the last several years. So I know what that kind of work is like. Okay, so fifth house, your creativity, joy, children, unabashed romance. This is where the Saturn Neptune conjunction is going to pop for me. So I'm excited to for you to get an understanding of where it's going to happen for you. Okay, so your sixth house. This is I've also done a lot of sixth house work because Uranus for the last 6 years was in my sixth house. And this is where Chiron is moving, and it'll be my Chiron return. Your sixth house is where you figure out, it can be sometimes called the house of like where the rubber meets where the pavement can kind of like hit the tires, and you have to realize like what might not be sustainable in your life, and how you have to restructure your daily rhythms, your health, how your career actually affects your nervous system, so that you can have a sustainable life. So I've thought a lot about I've done like a lot of work in these houses. So seventh house, relationships and partnerships. If you aren't loving your relationship, what are you calling in? Like how do you make sure that you actually bring your self-worth to the table so that you accept nothing less in partnership? Okay, so eighth house, transformation, death and rebirth. I'm gonna be big into this house because for my perfection year, I'm in my eighth house right now. All right, let me get my ninth house answer. I'm excited for Jupiter to move into Leo and really light up my ninth house because my moon is in Leo. And by the time this happens, it will be my ninth house perfection year. And so I'm ready to just like get my J-Lo on deck, basically. Because for me, it's all around being an astrological communicator. I'm just so excited to grow in that realm. So then it asks you for your 10th house. What do you want to be known for by December 2026? So for me, I'm saying like I want to be known as someone who helps people understand their own astrology, not just because that's how I want to make money, but because it matches my dharma. And so as we move into the 11th house, how are you playing with community? What is your collective vision? This is my favorite house, actually. I have a lot of planets in this house. And for me, I am not just doing astrology to do astrology. I do astrology because I want to turn masses of people into speakers of the universe. Like once you start truly working with your astrology, this is how you get into conversation with the field of synchronicity. You'll start noticing synchronicity more, and you'll start to realize like the universe wants to be an author of a beautiful story with you. So that's what I'm working on for 2026 in terms of my 11th house. And so, last question, 12th house, spirituality and surrender. What are you releasing? What have you had enough of? What have you realized like you kind of have to let Jesus or whoever works for you take the wheel, like let the universe take the wheel and just realize you're part of something so much bigger that you don't always have to micromanage everything. So, in terms of your spiritual world, that's a beautiful place to connect to so you can actually do that letting go. So those are all the questions. 12 questions. It might seem like a lot, but you don't have to do this in 5 seconds. You can, really take your time with this. So once you answer all of those questions, it's going to help you design your dream life by doing a dream life synthesis so that this gives you the opportunity to conceptualize the interplay between the transits that are going to happen in 2026 and what you really are trying to call forward in every area of your life so that you aren't staring at a blank page. And I think that's really nice because sometimes if you were to just try and do a journaling exercise like this, just pen and paper. There's nothing wrong with that, but you might get writer's block and so this just acts as a conversation partner. So it's going to go through kind of uh, the entire year with you and just take the answers that you just gave it and mix that up together and really give you a synthesis and kind of structure it by how the year's going to go. What's going to be the most important themes for you? So my Scorpio stellium is a big deal. I have 6 planets there. My moon in Leo is going to be part of my perfection year. So it's really helping me get an understanding of like the focus of the year and then what is the flow of the year going to be. So what's the beginning in the early year, restructuring joy and building from the heart because Neptune and Saturn are moving into my fifth house this summer. Chiron is entering Taurus, Jupiter is shifting into Leo. So it's telling me how all of that's going to hit me and my chart. And so the next piece is your tactical roadmap because I don't want this to just be like flowery language, like, kind of making you feel good about what's going to happen. I want you to know how to speak and how to move through the year. So it's going to give you some tactical steps of what's your number one goal? And this is super true for me. I am building and publicly launching my structured system that translates astrology and consciousness into a framework for not only self leadership that you can follow on your own. And what's the priority? This is going to be the entry into my ninth house perfection year. Leo is going to be the Lord of my year this year, and I'm going to be teaching what I know, teaching my passion. And Saturn and Neptune in my fifth house is going to make sure that I bring my creativity into form. No just dreaming just like for the sake of daydreaming. I'm building shit and you'll see that happen. And so how do we actually do the things that will make our dream life happen? Okay, how are we calling in abundance? Like, I know we all want that. So, what are the practical steps? How are we calling in the love that we deserve and that we want? How are we calling in health? How are we making sure that our vessels feel safe to carry us through the adventure of life? And what identity are you stepping into? So, for me, a visible, self-led architect of systems for consciousness, unapologetic, unapologetically powerful and embodied. I am not letting my critics hang on to my coattails and stop me from doing what I came here to do. Absolutely not. Okay, so one of the last phases of this is your 2026 Cosmic Action Plan. It's going to take the entire dream roadmap that we just designed and then give you priorities, talk about timing windows that mix up all of the transits for 2026 that we walk through, including the eclipses, including Mercury retrograde, and really just give you an understanding of like how do you actually move throughout the year. And so it's going to finish up by just saying, this is do you want to be on your hero's journey? Do you want to actually become the person who architects and writes the storyline of their life so that when you are ready to hang it up in this incarnation, hopefully when you're 110 or something like that, who knows with the way, longevity tech is moving, that you can look back and by using astrology as a language, by learning how to speak astrology, and get in conversation with the universe and take that writer's pen and architect and author your life story using the cosmos as your blueprint, understanding that your birth chart is a seed mandala, but it's not a destiny in the sense that it's not causal. It doesn't just it doesn't your blessings don't just move towards you, without your participation on a conveyor belt. You are the hero that is going to go through the dark forest and have to find your innate gifts that are part of your tool set to create the life that you truly want to live. And it's going to include many eras, many chapters. You are going to have to hike down into the valleys and climb up the peaks so that you get to your mountaintop. But the beautiful thing is that cosmic loneliness goes away. It starts to shrink the more you can be in awareness and watching these macrocosmic patterns that we talked about at the beginning, that we can watch what's going on with the cosmic symphony and then see that there is meaning that is correlative to your microcosm. And as someone who isn't just an astrologer, but I build all these tools. If you have already gotten my hero story birth chart biography, you know that's something I want you to work with for life. It's not a one and done read it once, although it is fun to do that. It's that I'm going to go back and marinate on this when a certain house in my birth chart is really activated. I'm going to reread the planets in that chart or in that house. And then use your personal natal transits. I have free tools to track that. You can use Starelai, my free app. It's still free for now. To really understand the rhythms, the waves of energy that's hitting you. And so we just talked through the collective transits that are going to happen in 2026 and where they're going to activate your chart, but you're also having all of those planetary movements are going to have aspects to like hitting different planets in your chart. So I want you to understand all of this in a way that is very doable in your own world. You can book sessions with me, sure, but what I want is that you are an activated astrological thinker with agency. And so when you finish this GPT, you can go back and like I'm gonna just tell it like, hey, I want to go into more detail around understanding how Neptune, Saturn in my fifth house activates creativity. Whatever your main question is, you can just have a conversation with this thing to your heart's desire. It will keep chatting with you. And over the next few days, I'll give you some more tips via email about how to get the most out of this and other tools that will help you continue to live in the river of your own astrology so that you are really living it out instead of just kind of being a passive like astrology for spiritual infotainment kind of deal. So if that's interesting for you, I want you to have it. I want, these kind of tools weren't available 20 years ago. If I had had this when I was in high school, I guarantee you my life would have gone differently because I would have been working with activating myself. I would have seen how the hero story birth chart biography is meant to just give you in one thick document, again, that you can save for life, that teases your awareness awake to the beauty of your genius and how if you don't garden it, if you let your garden be just run by the chaos of unconsciousness and you don't participate in its cultivation, oh, what a shame to lose, the opportunity to become the mother tree that the acorn of your birth chart really wants you to be. And I think the other exciting point is that when you truly grab onto your genius and realize how much beauty is inside of you to be cultivated, you aren't just doing it for you. The cool thing is it gives you everything you want in this incarnation, but what you become enabled to do serves the whole story of humanity. And that's why the universe took a chance and put you here, because it wants if you're an integral part of the human story. I mean, how cool is that? Okay, well, we're at 49 minutes. I'm gonna let you guys go. But just enjoy this so much and really realize like you are the owner of your own astrology and you have all the tools you need to really get into it. So it was such a pleasure going through this exercise with you. And you can share this GPT with any of your friends. It is free to share with whoever you want until January 1st. Okay, toodles.